Welcome to CNN 10. I'm Carl Azusa at the CNN Center. We have some tragic news to tell you about first today. It involves a shooting at a bar in Thousand Oaks, California. Here's what we know. It took place on Wednesday night at a place called Borderline Bar and Grill. Students from California Lutheran University and Pepperdine University are believed to have been there at the time. Officials estimate hundreds of people were. Police say a gunman forced his way into the bar and started shooting with a single handgun. A Ventura County sheriff says officers got to the scene within 3 minutes after the first emergency call was made. 2 of them went into the bar after hearing shots, and one of them, a law enforcement veteran, was killed. At least 11 other people died in the incident, including the suspected shooter. Police believe he killed himself. What they don't know is why this happened. Police say the gunman was a 28-year-old military veteran. He had had run-ins with police before. A sheriff says a crisis team that visited the suspect in the past thought he might have had post-traumatic stress disorder, possibly from the time he served in combat. The mayor of Thousand Oaks, which is located about 40 miles west of Los Angeles, says his city is considered to be one of the safest in the country. That was echoed by one of the witnesses to the shooting. Borderline Bar and Grill was hosting College Country Night, which is popular with students when the shooting happened. Second trivia. Veterans Day originated with an observance that marked the end of what war? U.S. Civil War, World War I, World War II, or Vietnam War? The holiday observed on November 11th recalls Armistice Day, which marked the end of World War I. As it's widely quoted, the armistice that ended the Great War went into effect on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. So this Sunday is the anniversary, and it will be exactly 100 years since the guns fell silent in the war to end all wars. Sadly, it didn't live up to that name, with the larger, more brutal conflict of World War II beginning just 21 years after the First World War ended. But at the time, World War I ran from 1914 to 1918. The world had never seen a conflict like it. Millions of people from across the planet were killed. Even a century after the war ended, some battlefields in France and Belgium still show the craters made by the shells. Some areas are still closed to the public because they're filled with unexploded bombs and mines. Tanks, machine guns, fighter planes, chemical weapons. They were all used on a large scale for the first time. So the war made history, both for the destruction it caused and the technology used to carry it out. Now, modern technology is taking footage like this and helping people envision World War I as it looked to those who fought it. This report by Nick Glass helps bridge the past with the present.
The trains, of course, are so much faster now. Just whistle through the station at Letchworth, some 40 miles north of London. The station building itself hasn't changed that much in a century or so. The big difference on that summer's day way back in August 1914 was the main platform was crowded with men in uniform going off to war. The way we remember the Great War has subtly changed. The images are being tinted, and we've begun to see the war in colour for the first time.
So this is Private Walter Flanders and Private Bill Johnson. They have a tragically short war in that these two chaps are both killed by the same shell, buried alive.
Dan Hill is trying to identify all the men on the platform and find out what happened to them.
This is Corporal Arthur Ernest Boardman. He's the very first man to fall.
So far, Hill has identified 11 of the men in the photo. 8 of them never came home. Their names are on the war memorial just 50 yards from the railway station. Corporal Boardman, Privates Flanders and Johnson among a long list of other casualties. Just colorizing old black and white stills obviously makes the story more accessible to a younger generation. Doing the same to moving footage has been infinitely more dramatic.
It just brings it to life, and I mean, as someone who's had a long-term interest in the First World War, this last 2 or 3 years when we've been restoring this footage has been incredibly exciting. I'm stunned. You see the faces, you see the people, you see the humanity.
Peter Jackson's documentary, They Shall Not Grow Old, gives us a rare insight in what it was like to fight in the trenches on the Western Front. Both electrifying, funny and sobering. A film about camaraderie and animal savagery. We learn what it was like to be an ordinary soldier. This is the Welsh grandfather Peter Jackson never met. Sergeant William Jackson was machine-gunned at the Battle of the Somme in France in 1916. He was a lucky one. He survived. Private Ted Ambrose didn't. He was 19 when he died. His suitcase was returned from the Somme to his mother in England. She could hardly bear to open it, and it was quickly consigned to her attic for most of the 20th century. Ted's pipe and tobacco, his cigarettes including Army issue Red Hussars, a locket with pictures of himself and his sweetheart, and the service medals he never lived to receive. The artifacts amount to a rare discovery, a poignant time capsule. We began the centenary of the Great War in 2014, with the moat at the Tower of London filled with a sea of ceramic poppies. Some of them have now migrated across the Thames to the Imperial War Museum, a cascade, a weeping window spilling down the building. Britain's poet laureate Carol Ann Duffy has written a new poem to mark the centenary of the armistice. The Great War, she writes, is the wound in time. Will we ever remember it with quite so much intensity again? Nick Glass, CNN, London.
Well, from technology used to color film from the past, here's an idea of how NASA is using tech to give extremely high-definition views of the International Space Station. Now, I said an idea and not a look. The reason? This is video in 8K. That means it has 16 times the number of pixels that an HD TV has. It's just too bad that for most people, they can't actually see this in HK because there aren't a lot of monitors around that have the ability to show it. So while NASA can record in 8K, you're probably just viewing this in HD. Which for some will be the very high definition of disappointment. They'll need to see the problem come to a resolution before they're okay with it. They could be torn apart if their vision stops at a 1080 peak, from which they just can't pixel it to be anything better. The issue is liquid crystal clear. Someone will have to take the screen time to sharpen it. I'm Carl Azus, and Fridays are awesome. CNN 10 wishes all of you a wonderful Veterans Day weekend, and to the veterans in our audience and those currently serving in the military, thank you for your service.